let's meet our debaters, a liberal-leaning lawyer and a conventionally conservative investment broker. They're well known to readers of the Visalia Times-Delta newspaper in their counterpoint column. Please join me in welcoming, on the left, Joe Altschule, and on the right, Tom Fife. Gentlemen, you know what the rules are. This is a no-holds-barred cage match. I want to see it kept clean here.
No gouging, no spitting, no kicking.
Please. And I want to begin, as I mentioned to our audience, with the notion that, as Tip O'Neill famously is quoted as saying, all politics is local. And as Everett Dirksen is famously quoted as saying, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, and pretty soon you're talking real money. Speaking of money, voters in Tulare County are being asked to approve 3 local measures for school improvement, including 2 for the College of the Sequoias. Half of the state propositions total about $18 billion in bonds and other financial obligations. My first question, I'd like you each to take a minute, 2 minutes, whatever you feel comfortable with. Should we pay for improved infrastructure and services, even if it means going further into debt? And we begin, naturally enough, with our investment program.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having both Joe and I here. We have done this for many, many years, and we are actually friends. So before we go down the road of thinking that we're going to be vicious to each other, it's just not going to happen that way. Well, it might, but it won't come from me.
It usually does.
The issues this year, and really there are two things to consider here. First of all, we're in a very tough economic environment, in case you hadn't noticed. I think it's going to be very difficult to convince the people of California in general to reach into their pockets and provide more capital, no matter what the project is, good or bad. It's going to be difficult to get that passed this year because they're trying to hold on to their own pocketbooks. And this is a pocketbook election this year, and I think we'll find out over the next week if indeed John McCain has a chance of winning. It will take some stabilization in the markets, I believe. As far as bond issues, Joe and I both agree that supporting veterans bonds is a good idea. They have been good for vets. They do help, and especially this year with a housing crisis. What we need to understand about this economy right now is that housing led us here, and housing is going to need to lead us out. So if we can do anything to help stimulate the housing market with the veterans bond, I think that's great. Beyond that, I think it's going to be very difficult to get a bond passed.
Joe?
Well, yes, it's always difficult to ask people to tax themselves or indebt themselves even more with bond measures. Most of you people in this room are property owners, and you know when you get your property bill, there is that notation on there that so much money is for a bond measure that passed, and that's when the bill comes due. Having said that, it's incredibly important to understand that things like infrastructure, educational bonds, and the such are really investments in our future and our children's future. We cannot live in a society that simply refuses to pay for the things that we need. The thing that we need to do, however, is decide on an intelligent basis what it is we really need. And when we're talking about school bonds, the COS bond, this bond, and here we are at the COS campus, and this is a beautiful structure, and a lot of people use this campus and put their lives in a position where they can do more, earn more, contribute more, be better citizens. So as long as we look critically at what the issue is about, and if you decide that that issue is an investment in your future or your children's future, then you should vote for it. If you decide it's not necessary, it's frivolous, or it doesn't make a large difference in your life, then you should consider voting against it. But we don't see many of those these days. What we see these days are the really necessary ones. Do we want to fall behind as a state? Do we want to lack the proper highways, the proper roads, bridges, tunnels, and schools? Do we really want to go down that road? It's a tough choice. Nobody wants to pay the money, but the real question is it worth it and what's the money for? Those bond issues, in my view, are extremely necessary.
Gentlemen, I'm holding here a list of propositions. Now, you might recall that during that first presidential debate, the moderator tried to get presidential candidates to answer the question, what would you be willing not to pursue given the current state of the economy? So we have high-speed rail, we have a children's hospital bond, nonviolent drug offense rehabilitation, police and law enforcement funding, alternative fuel vehicles and renewable energy bonds, and the veterans bond. You seem to agree, correct me if I'm wrong, but you seem to agree that Prop 12 on veterans bonds is worth supporting. But of those other 5, are there any that you would absolutely not agree to support, and are there any that you would absolutely not agree to forego?
The ones that I think, well, the one that I think is the most critically necessary and important is 1A, the rail bond. We live in a state that is large geographically, and the roads and the highways are absolutely overburdened, and half of them are falling down and in need of a repair. What this country sorely lacks is a light rail system or any kind of rail system. For those of you who are fortunate enough to have traveled around the world and seen what they do in European countries, it's incredibly different than what we have here. You can get anywhere you want on the European continent by rail quickly, inexpensively, and easily. We don't have that here, and because we haven't had it here, we probably don't know what we're missing. But that measure, and we want to talk locally, you talk about a boon to the valley. You talk about the idea that we are right smack in the middle of this state, and people will go back and forth and cross this valley, see what we have here, get to know our industry, our agriculture, our business, get to know the people here. It's a way of bringing people together, and it solves a great part of the energy process. It's a magnificent way to get started. It's infrastructure, it's energy efficient, and it links us all at the same time. So I can't think of anything more important than that.
Tom, agree, disagree?
No, I don't agree this year, because honestly, I don't believe it'll pass. It can't pass this year because when the governor's in Washington, D.C. with his hand out saying, hey, we're going to add to your burden, we need another $7 billion, I think the people are looking at these as pocketbook issues. Now, for the future, Joe's absolutely right. This valley very easily could become a bedroom community for both San Francisco and Los Angeles. The argument right now, as I understand it, is where you put the station. Is it going to be as far to the west as Hanford, or is it going to be right over here in Goshen? This is the old railroad argument. You know, wherever you put the station is where the prosperity was. That is an interesting argument. It is important because I do believe eventually we will go down the road on this. But I had believed when I was a young person that by the time I was 60 years old, which I will be in January, that we would have men on Mars. I don't think we'll see this in the next 20 years. I really don't. I think the fiscal problems that we are facing are so very real and so very deep that education, healthcare, other issues are going to move to the frontier, and this is going to die a natural death this year.
We'll undoubtedly continue talking about money as the evening progresses, but I do want to take a moment to say for our radio audience that this is Quality of Life on Valley Public Radio, and we're going to continue with this conversation in a moment. But first, I'd like to take